Hello, and welcome back to If History Had Read It. Thank you for joining me again in this quiet space, our shared archive of whispered histories. I am so glad you are here. Find your comfortable position, let your shoulders soften, and allow the sounds of your own time to recede, to be replaced by a different rhythm. We are about to take a journey, not to the gilded halls of inventors or the boardrooms of industrialists, but to a world of red brick and gray skies, a world being born in fire and steam. We travel to the heart of 19th century Britain, to the very engine room of a new age where the air is thick with coal smoke and the future is being woven from cotton and steel. If you enjoy what we do here and find some measure of comfort or quiet fascination in these stories from the past, please consider letting us know with a like or by subscribing to the channel. Your quiet support is deeply appreciated, and it allows our library to continue gathering these echoes from long ago. Now, settle in. Let the world outside your window fade. Tonight, we explore a world being utterly remade, a landscape transformed by the relentless march of the machine. This was an age of unprecedented progress, of innovation that would reshape the globe. But progress casts a long shadow, and within that shadow were the lives of those who paid the highest price for this new era. They were the smallest of workers, the children whose days were measured not by the sun, but by the factory whistle and the clattering loom. We will not look at the grand tapestry of this revolution, but at the individual threads. We will listen to 4 quiet accounts, 4 voices from the noise, that tell us what it was truly like surviving the Industrial Revolution as a child. Our journey tonight begins in Lancashire, in the heart of the 1840s. Imagine a landscape once defined by rolling hills and quiet villages, now fundamentally remade by the unceasing demands of a single plant: cotton. The sky here is no longer a simple blue, but a permanent, hazy gray, a canopy woven from the smoke of 1,000 brick chimneys. Each one rises like a monument to this new age, tirelessly breathing out a plume of dark vapor that settles upon the land, staining the stone of the buildings and dusting the leaves of the few remaining trees with a fine layer of soot. This is the epicenter of the textile revolution, a place where raw cotton, harvested by enslaved hands across an ocean, arrives to be spun and woven into the fabric that will clothe an empire. The towns themselves are a testament to this singular purpose. They are not built for comfort or for beauty, but for efficiency. Rows of identical brick houses, crammed together along narrow, cobbled streets, provide shelter for the legions of workers required to serve the machines. These streets are often slick with a mixture of rain and industrial effluence, and the air carries a unique scent, a heavy, damp smell of coal smoke, of wet earth, and beneath it all, the slightly sweet, oily aroma of the mills themselves. The true rulers of this landscape are the mills. They are colossal structures, vast brick fortresses of industry that dominate the skyline. Their many windowed faces stare out over the town, dark and imposing during the day, yet glowing from within long before the sun rises and long after it has set. They are never silent. A low, persistent hum emanates from their walls, a vibration that can be felt in the soles of one's feet even from a street away. It is the sound of production, the ceaseless heartbeat of the new economy. To approach one of these structures is to feel a growing sense of insignificance. Its scale is designed to impress upon all who enter that the individual is secondary to the process. The noise grows from a hum into a deep, guttural roar, a physical assault on the senses. And as you step through the main doors, that roar becomes an all-consuming reality. It is a sound that defies simple description, a cacophony composed of 1,000 distinct yet inseparable parts. There is the rhythmic, percussive slam of the power looms, a sound so forceful it feels like a series of blows against the chest. There is the high-pitched whir of countless spinning spindles, the clatter and scrape of metal on metal, the hiss of steam from pipes running along the ceiling, and the deep grinding groan of the immense water wheel or steam engine that gives the entire factory its life. This sound is the defining feature of the environment. It is a solid wall of noise, so absolute and unyielding that it renders spoken language useless. New workers quickly learn that to shout is a futile gesture. The sound is simply swallowed by the greater din of the machinery. In response, a silent and intricate language of the hands and face emerges. A flick of the wrist, a nod of the head, a specific gesture with the fingers. These are the ways in which communication happens. Overseers signal their commands, workers warn each other of danger, and friends share a fleeting moment of solidarity, all in the silence imposed by the deafening roar. This is a detail often lost in the grand narrative of industrialization, that within these temples of noise, life became a pantomime, a world of gestures against a backdrop of mechanical thunder. The air inside is thick and heavy, saturated with humidity deliberately maintained to prevent the cotton threads from becoming brittle and snapping. It is also filled with a fine white mist of cotton dust, known as fluff. It clings to every surface, coats the hair and clothes of the workers, and fills their lungs with every breath. The floor, often made of rough wooden planks, is perpetually damp and slick with a mixture of water, oil, and cotton waste. And then there is the machinery itself. From the perspective of a child, it is a terrifying mechanical forest. Rows upon rows of looms and spinning mules stretch into the dim distance, their iron frames forming narrow canyons through which the workers must navigate. A dizzying web of leather belts and ropes crisscrosses the space above, connecting the individual machines to the main drive shafts rotating ceaselessly near the ceiling. It is a world of constant, rhythmic, and exposed motion. Nothing is shielded. Gears gnash, levers pump, and immense flywheels spin with a terrifying and hypnotic regularity. It is in this overwhelming environment that we find our first subject. His name is Thomas, and he is 11 years old. He is a piecer. His job is one of the most common for children in the cotton mills. The purpose of the spinning mule is to stretch and twist the raw cotton into thread or yarn. But in this process, the threads frequently break. When a thread snaps, the machine cannot fix itself. It is the piecer's job to mend it. The work requires speed, dexterity, and most importantly, smallness. For the threads often break in places that adult hands cannot easily reach. Thomas, like the other children, works barefoot. Shoes are liability on the slippery, uneven floors, and they are a luxury his family cannot afford anyway.
His small, bare feet have learned to navigate the treacherous terrain of the factory floor, to avoid the splinters and the slickest patches of oil. His task demands that he patrols a set of machines, his eyes constantly scanning the rows of threads, watching for the telltale sign of a break. When he sees one, he must act instantly. He darts towards the massive moving machine, and in a movement that must be both swift and precise, he ducks under the moving carriage, snatches the two broken ends of the thread, and with a deft twist of his fingers, rolls them back together. He must do this while the machine is still in motion. To stop the machine would be to lose precious seconds of production time, an offense that would earn him a fine from his wages or a blow from the overseer. And so for 12 hours a day, Thomas lives in a state of heightened vigilance, his small body wedged between the floor and the vast, indifferent mechanics of the spinning mule. His world is reduced to the endless expanse of white threads and the constant, looming danger of the iron machine that he serves. It is a life lived in the shadow of a gear, a dance with a mechanical partner that could crush a limb without ever noticing. Let us turn now to a post from this young boy, a quiet reflection logged in the moments of weary stillness after a long day, capturing the fear and the focus required to simply survive a shift in the mill.
The whistle blows before the sun is up. It's not a kind sound. It cuts through the dark and the quiet of the room. It always makes my heart jump. Mother is already moving about. I feel my brother stir next to me in the bed. He coughs, a dry little sound. We all have the cough. They call it the mill cough. I pull the thin blanket up, but the cold is already on my skin. I don't want to get up. My legs ache from yesterday. My back is sore. But the whistle is the master. It does not care if you are sore. The walk to the mill is always the same. Dark streets, wet stones under my feet. Other shadows are moving in the same direction. Some are men, big and broad, but most are small shadows like me. We don't talk. There's no need. We are all going to the same place. The mill gets bigger and bigger as I get closer. It breathes out smoke and steam, even in the dark. It feels like a giant, sleeping, but I know it is not sleeping. It is waiting. The rumbling starts in my feet first, a tremble in the ground. Then it grows until it is all around me. The moment I step inside, the noise hits me. It's not just a sound, it's a thing. It pushes on my ears and my chest. The air is warm and wet and full of white dust that gets in my mouth and my nose. I start coughing before I even get to my machine. The overseer, Mr. Grimes, is already there. He doesn't look at me, just points to my section with his chin. That's all he needs to do. I know what he means. Get to work, don't be slow. My section is 2 spinning mules. They're huge, iron and wood and moving parts. They look like giant skeletons lying on their sides. My job is to walk in the space between them, back and forth, all day. My feet know the floor. They know the loose board near the end and the place where the oil pools. The floor is always slippery. I learned a long time ago not to wear shoes. You can't feel the floor with shoes on. You need to feel it. The threads are like a white harp in the dim light, hundreds of them, pulling tight, stretching, making the yarn. They are beautiful, I suppose, but I don't see beauty. I see work. I see danger. My eyes have to watch them all at once. It's a trick you learn. You don't stare at one, you let your eyes swim over all of them, looking for the flutter. The tiny flutter of a thread that is snapped. There, I see one, near the middle of the carriage. My body moves before I think. I have to be fast. I duck down and go under the carriage. It's a low space. I have to crawl on my hands and knees. The machine is moving above me, a constant rhythm. Clack, slide, clack, slide. I find the two broken ends. They're soft, like cobwebs. I take them between my thumb and forefinger and roll them. A quick, sharp twist. It has to be just right. Not too thick, not too thin. If I make a lump, the yarn is ruined, and Mr. Grimes will see it. I can feel the machine moving. I can feel the vibration in the floorboards right by my face. I join the thread and pull my hand back, fast. Then I scuttle back out into the alley between the mules. I am breathing hard. My heart is thumping. I did it. I was fast enough. I look up, and Mr. Grimes is watching me. He stands at the end of the row, his arms crossed. He doesn't smile. He just holds up his hand, his thumb and forefinger close together. He is telling me the thread was too thick, a warning. I feel a hot shame in my chest. I look down at my feet. I have to be better, faster, cleaner. A few hours pass. The sun is up now, but it doesn't make much of a difference in here. The light from the tall windows is pale and gray, cut into pieces by the moving belts and pulleys. My back starts to ache. It's a low, dull pain that never really goes away. I am thirsty, but the water bucket is at the end of the row, and I can only go when there is a pause in the work. There is never a pause. My throat feels dry and scratchy from the fluff. Everyone is coughing. We don't even hear it anymore. It's just part of the noise. James works on the other side of my mule. He is younger than me, maybe 9. He is a scavenger. His job is even more dangerous than mine. When the fluff builds up under the machine, he has to crawl all the way under while it's moving and brush it out. He is small, even smaller than I am. Sometimes we look at each other. We don't have to do anything, just a look. He knows I am tired. I know he is scared. We have our own way of talking. If I see Mr. Grimes coming, I brush my nose with my finger. James knows that means to look busy. If he sees a broken thread on my side before I do, he'll tug his ear. It's a secret language. It's the only thing that makes it feel less lonely. Mr. Grimes says I am not fast enough. Yesterday, he grabbed my arm. His fingers were strong. He pulled me close so I could see his mouth move. He wasn't shouting. You can't shout. He just mouthed the words. Faster, boy, or you'll feel the strap. I don't want to feel the strap. I saw a boy get it 2 weeks ago. It makes a sharp sound, even over the noise of the looms. And they take the money from your pay. Mother needs the money. My father works at the docks, but his cough is bad and he misses days. My wages are important. I cannot be slow. But my fingers get tired. Sometimes they feel clumsy, and I am so afraid. The machine doesn't care about my fingers. The gears and the wheels just keep turning. Last month, a boy named Daniel got his hand caught in the gears of a carding machine. I didn't see it happen, but I heard it. The sound. The machine made a terrible screeching noise, and then it stopped. And the whole mill went quiet on our floor. The silence was the worst part. It was so loud. Everyone just froze. I saw them carry him out. His arm was wrapped in sacks, but they were already red. I try not to think about Daniel, but every time I reach under the carriage, I see his face. I feel a cold knot in my stomach. What if my hand slips? What if I am not quick enough?
They give us a break for dinner. 30 minutes. We sit on the floor in a corner, away from the machines. I have a piece of bread and a small onion. It tastes like fluff. Everything tastes like fluff. I eat it quickly, and then I just sit. I try to rest my back against the wall. The noise is a little less here, but my ears are still ringing. They are always ringing. Even when I am in bed at night, I can hear the echo of the machines. The afternoon is the longest part of the day. The air gets hotter, the fluff gets thicker. My body feels heavy, like it's made of lead. This is when it is most dangerous. When you are tired, you make mistakes. My eyes burn. I have to force them to stay open, to keep scanning the threads. Back and forth, back and forth. A blur of white. Sometimes I feel like I am part of the machine. My arms and my legs are just levers and gears, doing the same thing over and over. I am not a boy. I am a piecer. I think about things to keep my mind awake. I think about the field behind our house. It's not a big field, just a patch of muddy grass. But sometimes, on a Sunday, if it's not raining, I can lie in it and look at the sky. A real sky, with white clouds and blue patches. I try to remember what that feels like. The cool grass on my back. The quiet. It is hard to remember the quiet. The whistle finally blows to end the day. It is the best sound in the world. For a moment, we all stop. The machines wind down, their roar fading to a groan, and then to a hum, and then to silence. The quiet feels strange now, heavy. We are all covered in a fine white powder. We look like ghosts. I don't run out. I'm too tired to run. I just walk. Out of the heat, into the cool night air. My ears are still buzzing. The walk home feels longer than the walk to the mill. My mother will have soup. I will eat the soup and fall into bed. My brother will already be asleep. And then, in just a few hours, the whistle will blow again. I'm lying here in the dark now, listening to my father cough in the other room. I can still feel the machine moving. I close my eyes and I see the threads. I'm afraid to go to sleep. I am afraid of tomorrow. Mr. Grimes will be watching me. I have to be faster. I just don't know how. How do you make your fingers move quicker when they are shaken? How do you stop thinking about Daniel's arm? I keep telling myself, just watch the threads. Don't think. Just move. But I am so tired. And I am so scared.
And so, the quiet testimony of Thomas comes to a close, leaving behind the echo of a world that is difficult for us to fully comprehend. His words are not a grand historical account, but a simple personal ledger of sensations and fears. What is most striking is not just the physical hardship he describes, but the profound psychological weight placed upon such young shoulders. His primary fear is not simply of the machine, but of his own inadequacy. I have to be faster, he repeats, internalizing the relentless demands of the factory system. The machine's pace becomes the measure of his own worth, and the fear of the overseer's strap is intertwined with the fear of failing his family. This was the subtle cruelty of the system. It enlisted the child's own sense of duty and love as another gear in the vast engine of production. Thomas's account vividly illustrates how the environment reshaped human interaction itself. The deafening roar he describes was not merely a backdrop, it was an active force that stripped away the most fundamental tool of connection, the voice. The development of that silent, gestured language he shared with James was more than a practical tool for communication. It was a small act of reclamation, a way of forging a human bond in a place designed to erase individuality. It was a quiet rebellion of fellowship against a mechanical world that saw them only as extensions of the loom. The tragic reality is that Thomas was not an exception, he was the norm. His experience was replicated in tens of thousands of lives. The owners of these mills were not necessarily monsters in their own minds. They were men of business, and in the cold calculus of 19th century capitalism, children were the ideal workforce. Their size allowed them to work in spaces adults could not. Their supposedly nimble fingers were considered perfect for tasks like piecing, and most critically, they could be paid a fraction of an adult's wage. The machinery, in many cases, was designed with the child worker in mind. Their presence was not a byproduct of the system, it was a foundational element. The price of this efficiency was the wholesale consumption of childhood. It was a world where a boy of 11 had already internalized a lifetime of anxiety about productivity and performance, where the simple act of growing tired was a dangerous liability. The greatest danger of the mill was not just the instant threat of a crushed limb, but the slow, grinding erosion of the body and the spirit. The constant inhalation of cotton dust would, for many, lead to a lifetime of respiratory illness, the infamous mill cough that Thomas mentions so casually. The long hours and repetitive stress would leave bodies stooped and broken. The mill, for all its horrors, was a world of overwhelming sound and constant motion. But other children in other industries faced a trial of a completely different nature. Their struggle was not against a cacophony of noise, but against its absolute absence. We now leave the clattering mills of Lancashire and prepare to descend, moving from the gray skies of the city into the total blackness of the earth below.
Our first story took place within a man-made tempest, a world of overwhelming noise and violent motion. We now travel to a place that was its antithesis. We move from the spinning rooms of Lancashire to the coalfields of Yorkshire, and from a reality defined by a deafening roar to one defined by a profound and unnerving silence. Here, the struggle for survival was not against the speed of a machine, but against the crushing weight of stillness, solitude, and the absolute absence of light. The great engine of the Industrial Revolution was fed by coal, and the tunnels dug to extract this fuel were worlds unto themselves, with their own hierarchies, their own dangers, and their own caste of child laborers. Imagine a different kind of industrial landscape. The red brick of the cotton towns gives way to something starker, more elemental. The communities here are huddled around the pithead, the functional heart of the mine. The dominant structures are not the sprawling factories, but the gaunt skeletal frames of the winding gear that lowers men and children into the earth and hauls the coal out. The ground itself is scarred, marked by great black mountains of waste rock and shale known as slag heaps. These artificial hills loom over the small houses, their slopes barren and lifeless. A fine, gritty, black dust settles on everything here.
It is in the soil, on the window panes, in the very air, a constant reminder of the wealth being drawn from deep beneath the ground. The day for a mining child began with the descent. This was not a walk into a factory, but a plunge into another realm. The miners and children would crowd onto a crude wooden platform or into a large iron bucket, suspended by a chain. There was a lurch, a sickening drop in the stomach, and then the world of light and sky would shrink to a small, distant circle above. The darkness would rush up to meet them, and the air would grow cool and damp. The smell would change from coal smoke to the raw, earthy scent of the deep ground, of wet rock and ancient, undisturbed coal seams. The journey downwards was a swift and rattling passage into a world where the sun had no meaning. For the children, this descent marked the beginning of a 12-hour entombment. To be at the bottom of a coal mine in the 19th century was to be in a cramped, alien environment. The main shafts might be relatively large, but the seams where the coal was cut were often no more than 2 or 3 feet high. Tunnels radiated outwards from the main shaft like the burrows of an animal, dark, narrow, and claustrophobic. The walls were rough-hewn rock and coal, and the ceilings were often propped up by hastily placed wooden beams. Water was a constant presence, seeping through the rock, dripping from the ceiling, and forming cold, muddy pools on the floor. It was a place of perpetual damp and chill. The only light came from the tallow candles stuck into lumps of clay, or the small flickering flames of the miners' early safety lamps. These pinpricks of light only served to make the surrounding darkness seem more absolute, creating shifting, monstrous shadows that danced on the rough walls.
Within this subterranean world, there existed a rigid structure of labor, and at the very bottom of this structure were the youngest children of all. They were the trappers. Our next story comes from a girl named Sarah, who at 8 years old held this very position. The job of a trapper was deceptively simple, yet utterly vital. Throughout the mine, a series of wooden doors, or traps, were installed to control the flow of air. These doors were part of a primitive but essential ventilation system, designed to guide fresh air to the coal face and to prevent the buildup of the deadly gases that the coal seams released. Gases like methane, known to the miners as fire damp, which could explode with a single spark, or black damp, which could suffocate a man without warning. The trapper's task was to sit next to one of these doors and wait. When they heard the approach of a hurrier, often an older child or woman on all fours, dragging a cart or tub of coal with a chain around their waist, they had to pull a string to open the door. The tub would pass through, and the trapper had to immediately let the door swing shut, sealing the airway once more. This required no strength, only constant attention and obedience, and for this reason it was a job given to children as young as 5 or 6. For 12 hours a day, a trapper would sit on a small piece of wood or a lump of coal, their back against the cold, damp wall of the tunnel, and they would do so in complete and total darkness. This sensory deprivation is a crucial and often overlooked aspect of their labor. A candle was a needless expense for a child who was only required to listen. So for the entire duration of their shift, their world was one of absolute blackness. The only interruption would be the brief, flickering light from a hurrier's lamp, a fleeting moment of vision before being plunged back into the void. Time itself would begin to dissolve. The child's world was reduced to a series of pure sensations. The damp cold seeping into their bones, the hard floor beneath them, the rough texture of the wall, the feeling of the string in their hand. Their hearing would become intensely acute. Every drip of water, every distant scrape of a shovel, the scuttling of a rat in the darkness, each sound was magnified in the profound silence. It is in this state of prolonged isolation and darkness that the mind can begin to create its own reality. The shadows that were not there, the whispers carried on the drafts of air. The psychological toll of this existence on a young developing mind is difficult to measure, but it must have been immense. Fear was a constant companion. Not the fear of a fast-moving machine, but a deeper, more primal fear of the dark, of being alone, of the unseen things the mind could conjure from the blackness. Let us place ourselves there now, in that cold, silent tunnel, next to an 8-year-old girl named Sarah. Her entire universe for the next 12 hours is a small patch of dirt floor and a wooden door she cannot see. Her only connection to the human world is the distant sound of work and the eventual rumble of an approaching coal tub. It is from this place of profound solitude that our next post emerges.
My dad brings me down in the morning. He holds my hand in the cage and it goes down so fast my tummy feels funny. He has a candle on his hat. It makes our shadows long and wobbly on the walls. We walk for a long time. The tunnel gets smaller and smaller. He has to bend over, but I can still walk straight. He stops at my door. It's just a big piece of wood in the dark. He gives me my bread wrapped in a cloth and tells me to be a good lass. He says, "Listen sharp now, Sarah." I nod. Then he touches my head and walks away. His light gets smaller and smaller, like a star going away. Then it's gone, and the dark comes. It's a different kind of dark down here. It's not like the dark in my room at night. That dark has a window with a bit of moon in it. This dark is heavy. It feels like it's pushing on my eyes. The first thing I do is find my string. It's thick and rough. I wrap it around my hand a few times. This is my job. Hold the string. The silence is the next thing. It's as big as the dark. At first, all I can hear is the blood pumping in my ears. But if I stay still for a long time, I can hear other things. There's a dripping sound to my left. Plink, plink, plink. It's a slow one. There's another one farther down the tunnel that's faster. Plonk, plonk, plonk. I count the drips. The slow one got to 107 before the fast one started. I try to see which one will win. It's a game to make the time go. My seat is a rock that's mostly flat. It's cold. The cold seeps through my dress and my trousers. The wall behind me is wet. If I lean back, my hair gets damp. I have a spot that I've smoothed out on the dirt floor with my shoe. I draw circles in it with my finger. Circles inside circles. I can't see them, of course, but I know they are there. Sometimes I sing songs in my head. My mother taught me one about a boat on the sea. I can't sing it out loud. Mr. Hughes, the deputy, says a trapper must be silent. He says the gas can hear you. I don't think gas has ears, but I don't want to find out. So I sing it in my mind, and I pretend my rock is the boat, and the dark is the sea. The rats don't mind if I am quiet. They are my company. I hear them rustling and squeaking in the walls. I call the big one Thomas, because he is fat like our neighbour's cat. I don't see them, but I know their sounds. A quick, scratchy sound is Thomas. A little squeak is one of the babies. They don't come near me. We have an agreement. I don't bother them, and they don't bother me. They are just there, part of the dark.
The first time a hurrier comes, it's a long wait. I can feel him coming before I can hear him. The ground starts to hum a little bit, a deep, soft rumble. Then I hear it,
a scraping sound, and a puffing, like a tired old dog. It's William. He's an older boy. He pulls the tub with a chain around his waist and a rope over his shoulder. He has a candle on a bit of wood. The light is what I wait for. First it's just a tiny glow far away. It grows bigger. It makes the wet walls shine. It makes the shadows run away. I get my hand ready on the string. When the light is close, I pull. The door is heavy. It groans. William doesn't look at me. He just keeps his head down and pulls the tub through. I see his face for a second. It's black with coal dust, and his hair is wet with sweat. He is breathing hard. Then he is past. I let go of the rope, and the door slams shut. The bang is so loud in the quiet, and the dark comes back. It's even darker than before. My eyes hurt from the light. This happens maybe 10 or 12 times a day. It's how I know the time is passing. After the 5th tub, I can eat my bread. I eat it very slowly. I make one piece last for 100 counts of the slow drip. It doesn't taste like much, but it stops my tummy from rumbling. It's after my bread that the other things start to happen. The shiny dust. If I close my eyes really tight and then open them again, I can see little sparkles floating in the dark. They're pretty, like the stars my dad showed me once. They drift about and then they fade. At first I liked the shiny dust. It was something to look at. But now I see other things too. It started a few weeks ago. I was just sitting, listening to the drips, and I saw a man. He was standing in the tunnel, just past my door. He was very tall and thin, and he had no face. I knew he wasn't real. I knew it, but I saw him. I squeezed my eyes shut, and when I opened them, he was gone. My heart was beating so fast like a drum. I held my string so tight my fingers hurt. Now I see things all the time, not just the tall man. Sometimes it's a dog, a grey dog that sits and watches me. It doesn't have any eyes. Sometimes it's just shapes, darker shapes in the dark. They move in the corner of my eye. If I try to look right at them, they disappear. But I know they are there. I feel them there. I am so scared. I try to sing my song louder in my head. I try to count the drips faster. I trace my circles over and over until the dirt is hard, but I can't make them go away. Are they ghosts? My grandma says the mines are full of ghosts of the men who died down here. Is that what I'm seeing? Or is the darkness making my eyes sick? I think about being outside. I think about my mother's kitchen. It smells of baking bread and soap. There is a little red flower in a pot on the windowsill. I try to remember the exact colour of the flower. I try to feel the sun on my face. It's hard to remember the sun. It feels like a dream I had a long, long time ago. Down here, it is always night. It is always cold. I must have fallen asleep for a little bit. A noise wakes me up. It's a voice. It's my da. "Sarah, time to come home, lass." The relief is so big it makes me cry. I don't make a sound, but the tears run down my face and they are hot on my cold skin. I stand up, but my legs are stiff. I see his light coming, the most beautiful light in the whole world. He comes and takes my hand. He asks if I was a good lass. I just nod. I can't talk yet. He doesn't ask why my hand is shaking. We walk back to the cage. I don't let go of his hand, not for a second. Now I am home. My mother washed my face and hands. I'm sitting by the fire. It is warm. But even here, with the lamp lit and the fire going, if I look into the dark corners of the room, I think I can see the shapes moving. I want to ask my da, do you ever see things in the dark? But I'm afraid he will say I am being silly, or that I am not fit to be a trapper. We need the pennies I earn, so I don't ask. I just sit here, and I wonder if it's just me. Am I the only one? Does the darkness show things to the other children too? Is this normal, or am I going mad in the quiet and the dark?
Sarah's question, whispered from the depths of the earth, hangs in the silence she has left behind. Her account is a powerful testament to a form of hardship that is difficult to grasp, the tyranny of nothingness. Where Thomas's world was a constant assault on the senses, Sarah's was defined by their utter starvation. Her small, quiet rituals, the counting of the water drips, the silent songs, the invisible drawings, were not idle games. They were the desperate, ingenious work of a young mind, striving to build a structure in a void, to lay down markers of time and sanity in a place where both could easily dissolve. Her personification of the rats, her gray companions, speaks to a profound loneliness, a need for any kind of presence in the overwhelming solitude. The shapes she saw in the dark, the faceless man and the eyeless dog, are perhaps the most haunting element of her testimony. Her fearful question, "Is this normal?" is one that history can now, with a sad certainty, answer for her. Yes, it was tragically normal. What she was experiencing is a recognized psychological phenomenon. In the complete absence of external stimuli, a state of profound sensory deprivation, the brain does not simply shut down. It begins to generate its own input. These vivid hallucinations, sometimes called the prisoner's cinema, are the mind's attempt to fill the sensory vacuum. The sparkles, the shapes, the figures, they were not ghosts in the tunnel, but phantoms created by her own isolated, understimulated, and terrified brain. She was not going mad. She was experiencing the predictable consequence of an unthinkably cruel working condition. The great unwritten tragedy of the trapper's existence was that this role was considered easy work. It was assigned to the youngest children precisely because it required no physical exertion. The architects of this system measured hardship only in terms of muscle and bone. They had no metric for the toll of absolute solitude on a child's spirit, no understanding of the psychological damage being inflicted by the long hours of darkness and silence. It was the testimonies of children just like Sarah, gathered by parliamentary commissions in the 1840s, that would eventually shock the Victorian public. The image of a 6 or 8-year-old child spending the entirety of their waking hours alone in the blackness of a mine was a powerful catalyst for the first meaningful reforms to child labor laws in Britain. Sarah's experience forces us to reconsider the meaning of survival. She was not dodging gears or moving machinery, but she was engaged in a constant, quiet battle to preserve her own mind. Her imprisonment was not of iron bars, but of economic necessity, darkness and silence. And her workday did not truly end when her father's lamp appeared. The phantoms she met in the dark followed her home into the corners of the firelit room. But the struggles of these children did not end when the whistle blew, or when they finally ascended into the twilight. The pressures that sent them into the mill and the mine originated from and returned to the home. For many, the factory and the pit
were just one part of a desperate equation, one that was balanced precariously within the four walls of a single crowded room.
Our protagonist, a 13-year-old boy named Finn, was one of these essential contributors. His role in a London textile mill was that of a scavenger. Like the boy James in our first story, Finn's job was to collect the waste cotton, or fluff, from beneath the machinery. He had to be small and agile, darting under the massive, rhythmic bulk of the spinning mule during its brief cycle of retraction, sweeping the valuable cotton waste and getting out before the heavy carriage slid back into place. It was a job that demanded a terrifying intimacy with the machine, a constant, high-stakes gamble measured in inches and seconds. The scavengers were paid little, but their work was considered vital, and the risk was an accepted part of the job. But for Finn, that gamble has failed. An accident has occurred. We need not dwell on the specific, brutal mechanics of the moment, the slip, the cry, the sudden grinding halt of the machine. It is the aftermath that concerns us now. Finn lies on a small cot in the corner of his family's single room, his arm bound tightly in rags. He is no longer an asset to the family economy. He is now a liability. He is another mouth to feed without an income to contribute. The few shillings he brought home each week have vanished from their delicate budget, and a chasm has opened up between their needs and their means. It is in this context of quiet desperation that the sounds from the other side of the room must be understood. His parents are talking. Their voices are low, but the words are sharp with anxiety. This is not the simple, cruel berating of an injured child. It is the sound of fear. It is the sound of two parents staring into the abyss of eviction and starvation, their frustration and terror spilling out into the cramped space. The father's anger is not directed at his son out of malice, but out of a desperate sense of powerlessness. The mother's tears are not just for her son's pain, but for the impossible choice she faces between comforting her child and confronting their imminent ruin. And Finn hears it all. From his cot, trapped in the stillness of his injury, he is a captive audience to the crisis he believes he has caused. The pain in his arm is a dull, constant throb, but it is nothing compared to the sharp, rising feeling of guilt in his chest. It is from this place of physical pain and emotional turmoil that our next post is written. A silent question posed from a boy who is beginning to suspect that his injury is not a tragedy, but a crime for which he is the sole culprit.
We have journeyed through the deafening clamor of the cotton mill and the profound silence of the coal mine, witnessing the daily trials of children immersed in the machinery of industry. But the story of their struggle did not pause when they left the factory gate or the pit head. The dangers of their labor had a long reach, extending into the very heart of their homes and families. Our next account explores this painful intersection of work, injury, and family, examining the complex emotional fallout when a child worker could no longer work. We travel now to London, to a world not of production, but of convalescence, where the loudest noise is not a machine, but a whispered, desperate argument. The setting is a tenement building in one of the city's sprawling, impoverished districts. Imagine streets so narrow that neighbors can nearly shake hands from their opposite windows.
The air here is a thick stew of smells: coal smoke, damp refuse, the scent of unwashed bodies and cheap gin, all mingling together in the close, sunless air between the tall buildings. These are not the purpose-built worker houses of the northern factory towns, but older, decaying structures, subdivided again and again by landlords seeking to maximize profit from the influx of people flooding into the city. A single house might contain dozens of families, each occupying a single room. The sounds of life are inescapable: a baby crying in the room below, a couple shouting through the wall, the constant shuffle of feet on the worn wooden stairs. There is no privacy here, only a shared collective existence defined by proximity and poverty. Let us step inside one of these rooms. It is a small, cramped space, perhaps no more than 10 feet by 12. This single room is the kitchen, the bedroom, and the living space for an entire family. In one corner, a small, inefficient stove struggles to provide warmth, its smoke blackening the already grimy walls. A simple wooden table and a few stools occupy the center of the room. Against one wall is a large mattress on the floor where the family sleeps, a tangled heap of thin blankets and straw-filled pillows. There is a constant dampness in the air, a chill that even the fire cannot fully banish, and patches of dark mold creep across the ceiling. This room is not a sanctuary from the outside world. It is a microcosm of its pressures, a cramped stage where the daily drama of survival unfolds. To understand the story that is about to unfold here, we must first understand the fragile economy of the family unit. For the working poor of the 19th century, survival depended on a collective income. The concept of a single male breadwinner was a middle-class aspiration, not a working-class reality. The family's income was a patchwork, stitched together from the father's wages, any piecework the mother could do from their single room, like sewing shirts or making matchboxes, and crucially, the pennies earned by the children. Each contribution, no matter how small, was essential. The loss of any one of these incomes could mean the difference between having enough food and going hungry, between paying the rent and being evicted onto the street. A child's wage was not for toys or treats. It was a fundamental component of the family's budget, earmarked for bread, coal, or the rent collector.
They are talking about me. They think I'm asleep, but I'm not. You can't sleep when your arm is full of a dull, hot fire. So I lie still and watch the water stain on the ceiling. It looks a bit like a dog, if you squint. A sad dog with a long nose. I have been watching it for 3 days. It does not move. My arm is a heavy, useless thing lying next to me. It is wrapped in so many rags it looks like a club. Mother changes them in the morning and at night. She is gentle, but it still makes me bite my lip so I don't cry out. The real noise is not in my arm, though. It's coming from the other side of the room. The voices. Father's voice is low and rough, like stones grinding together. Mother's is high and thin, like a frayed thread. I can't hear all the words. They are trying to be quiet, but some words are sharp enough to cross the room. The rent is due Tuesday. Careless. Not a shilling from the boy. What will we do, Thomas? What will we do? Careless. That's the word that sticks. Father said it to me yesterday. He was standing over my cot, looking down at me. He wasn't shouting. It was worse than shouting. He just said, "You were careless, Finn.
Your head was not on your work." And then he turned away. He didn't say that the foreman, Mr. Sneed, had been pushing us harder all week. He didn't say that the floor was slick with oil from the mule next to mine. He just said I was careless. I close my eyes. If I do, I am back there. I'm not in this damp, quiet room. I am in the noise. The roar of the factory is all around me. 100 iron beasts all clattering and spinning at once. I can smell the oil and the sweat and the hot metal. My job is the rhythm. The mule slides out, smooth and heavy. That's my time. I have to be fast. I'm a little dart. I slide under the machine into the dark space beneath. It smells of dust. My brush is in my good hand, my right hand, and I sweep the white fluff into a little pile. My eyes are on the carriage. I watch for the shift, the tiny shudder that means it's about to come back. I was good at it. I was quick. Other boys were clumsy. They would leave fluff behind or stumble on the way out. Not me. I was Finn the eel, they called me. I could be in and out before the machine even knew I was there. I was proud of that. I was proud of the speed.
What happened? I keep trying to see it. I play it again and again in my head, like a penny theater show. The mule slides out. I go in. I sweep. The pile of fluff was a bit bigger than usual. I remember that. I reached for it, maybe a bit too far. Did my foot slip? I think it might have. There was a patch of grease. I think my heel slid on it. Just an inch. But an inch is a mile under the mule. I felt the shudder. I turned to scramble out, but I wasn't fast enough. Not this time. The carriage started to move back. I thought I was clear. I really thought I was. But my arm, my left arm, it must have been trailing behind me. I don't remember the pain first. I remember the sound. A horrible, wet, crunching sound, and a crack. It wasn't a loud sound, not in all that noise, but I heard it. And then the machine stopped. It just stopped. And my arm was on fire. White fire. Then everyone was shouting. Mr. Sneed was yelling. I saw his red face above me. And then they pulled me out. I don't remember much else. Just faces. And the strange, dead silence of one part of the factory. A silence I had caused. I opened my eyes. The dog on the ceiling is still there. Sad. My fault. It must be my fault. Father is right. If I had been more careful, I would not have slipped. If I had been paying more attention, I would have seen the grease. If I had been quicker, my arm would be fine. If my arm was fine, I would have my wages, and my mother and father would not be whispering in the corner. My little sister Elsie starts to cry. She is hungry. Mother goes to her and picks her up, murmuring to her. She rocks her, and I can hear her stomach rumbling from here. It is a small, sad sound. Mother will give Elsie her own piece of bread tonight. I know she will. And she will go to bed hungry. Because of me. The thought is a hard knot in my stomach. It hurts more than my arm. Last week, when I came home with my pay, I gave the coins to Mother. She counted them into her hand. She smiled, a tired smile, but a real one. She put one of the pennies back in my hand. "For you, Finn," she said. "You're a good lad, a good man of the house." I felt 10 feet tall. I bought a hot pie from a street seller and shared it with Elsie. It was so good. The crust was flaky, and the meat inside was hot and greasy. Elsie laughed when the gravy ran down her chin. That was my money that did that. I made my sister laugh.
Now, I am not a man of the house. I am a lump on a cot that costs money. I'm a mouth that eats their food. I'm the reason for the whispering. I'm the reason for the fear in my father's eyes. I risk a look over the edge of my blanket. Father is sitting at the table.
just staring at the wall. He is not moving. His hands are on his knees. He looks smaller than he usually does. Defeated. He works at the tanneries when he can get it, but the work is slow. He smells of chemicals when he comes home, a smell that makes your eyes water. He relies on my wages. He told me so himself. "We're a team, Finn," he'd said once. "You and me." I have broken the team. Mother puts Elsie back in the corner where she sleeps on a pile of rags. She comes over to me. She puts her cool hand on my forehead. "How's the pain, love?" she whispers. I want to tell her about the fire, but I just shake my head. "It's all right. Try to sleep." She thinks I don't know. She thinks I can't hear them. She thinks I don't understand that her soft voice is hiding a terror. Her kindness almost makes it worse. If she would just yell at me like Father did, it would be simpler. I would know I was bad, and that would be the end of it. But she is kind, and that makes the guilt sharper. So I'm asking myself here in the quiet, while I listen to my sister's hungry whimpers and my father's heavy silence, is it my fault? I didn't mean to slip. I never wanted to get hurt. I tried my best. But my best wasn't good enough, was it? An accident that hurts only you is one thing, but what about an accident that hurts everyone? An accident that means your sister goes hungry and your father looks broken and your mother has to lie to you with her eyes. Does that make it your fault? Am I the careless boy my father says I am? I turn my face to the wall. It's damp and cold against my cheek. I don't know the answer. I just know that I wish I could disappear. I wish I could just melt into this cot and not be a burden to them anymore.
Finn's silent question, "Is it my fault?" is one that the historical record can help us answer, even if he, lying in that damp and crowded room, could not. His heart-wrenching monologue reveals a psychological burden even heavier than his physical injury. He had absorbed the brutal logic of his world, that a person's value is measured by their productivity. His pride was not in being a child, but in being a man of the house, a contributor. When the accident stripped him of that role, it also stripped him of his perceived worth, leaving him with a profound and misplaced sense of guilt. The accident itself was not a matter of if, but when. For a scavenger, darting in and out of moving machinery for 12 hours a day, an eventual slip or miscalculation was a statistical certainty. But the system had no language for this. It only had the language of personal responsibility and carelessness. It is easy for us, from our modern vantage point, to see the father's anger as simple cruelty and the mother's quiet sorrow as weakness. But to do so is to misunderstand the language of desperation. The argument Finn overhears is the sound of a family drowning. The father's sharp words are not born of a lack of love for his son, but from a terrifying powerlessness. He cannot rage against the factory owner. He cannot protest the system, for he would be replaced in an instant. His anger, born of fear, has nowhere to go, and so it tragically lands upon the easiest target, the injured child. The parents are caught in an impossible bind, forced to simultaneously mourn their son's suffering and the catastrophic economic crisis it has created. We must remember that for a family like Finn's, there was no safety net. There was no workers' compensation,
no disability insurance, no state-sponsored medical care. The foreman did not send home a week's wages out of sympathy. The factory held no liability for the bodies it broke. The injury was Finn's alone, but the consequences belonged to the entire family. The loss of his few shillings a week was not an inconvenience, it was a disaster that could unravel their entire existence, leading directly to eviction and the dreaded workhouse. The argument in that room was not about blame in a moral sense. It was a frantic, terrified calculation of survival. Finn's story illuminates the grim reality that the factory's dangers extended far beyond its walls, poisoning the very relationships that should have been a source of comfort. It created an environment where a child's health was secondary to their economic output, and where a family's love could be distorted by the overwhelming pressure to simply endure. Finn was forced to grapple with complex adult emotions of guilt and economic responsibility long before he should have, all while trying to recover from a severe and traumatic injury. He was a child tasked with carrying the weight of his own perceived failure, a burden no child should ever have to bear. For many children like Finn, this cycle of labor, injury, and poverty was an inescapable trap, a grim inheritance passed from one generation to the next. The horizon of their lives seemed to be bounded by the factory wall and the tenement door. Yet even in the most desperate circumstances, the human desire for something more, for a world beyond the immediate struggle for survival, could not be entirely extinguished. In the darkest corners of industrial Britain, some children dared to dream of an escape. Their hope was not for wealth or for rebellion, but for something far more fundamental, and in its own way, far more radical: the quiet, luminous power of learning to read.
We have walked through a gallery of suffering, the relentless noise of the mill, the profound isolation of the mine, the crushing weight of guilt in a tenement room. It is a grim portrait of an era, and it would be easy to conclude that the lives of these children were devoid of any light whatsoever. But history is never so simple. The human spirit possesses a remarkable capacity for resilience, and even in the most oppressive of environments, the desire for a better life, for a world beyond the immediate horizon of survival, can take root. Our final story tonight is one of such quiet defiance. It is not about a rebellion of fists and barricades, but a rebellion of the mind, a story about the immense risk and transcendent reward of learning to read. Our setting is another of London's manufactories, one that produced a seemingly miraculous modern convenience, the friction match. To step inside a match factory in the mid-19th century was to be immediately assaulted by a smell. It was a sharp, acrid chemical odor that clung to the air, the walls, and the workers themselves. This was the smell of white phosphorus, the volatile substance that allowed a match to ignite with a simple strike. The workrooms were often dim and poorly ventilated, filled with rows of women and children sitting at long benches. Their hands moved with a swift, repetitive grace, dipping bundles of wooden splints into the glowing, paste-like phosphorus mixture, arranging them to dry, and then boxing them up. The pace was relentless, with wages often paid by the piece, rewarding speed above all else. This industry,
like all the others, had its own unique and terrible occupational hazard. The workers, breathing in the phosphorus fumes day after day, were susceptible to a dreaded affliction they whispered about with a mixture of fear and grim resignation. Phosphorus necrosis of the jaw, known colloquially as phossy jaw. We need not linger on the grim particulars, but it was a disease that began with toothaches and swelling and could lead to a progressive and painful decay of the jawbone. It was a known risk, a shadow that loomed over every worker who handled the white phosphorus, a constant, terrifying reminder of the price that could be paid for their meager wages. It is in this environment, one of physical risk and monotonous labor, that we find our final narrator, a 15-year-old girl named Mary. But the greatest risk she takes is not from the phosphorus. It is the one she takes on a Sunday, her only day of rest, for on that day, Mary attends a school. To our modern minds, this seems like a virtue, but in her time, for a girl of her class, the pursuit of education was a deeply suspect activity. The prevailing view among many factory owners and members of the upper classes was that educating the poor was a dangerous waste of time. It was believed to foster discontent, to give them ideas above their station, and to make them unfit for the life of repetitive manual labor that was deemed their lot. A worker who could read was a worker who could read a political pamphlet. A worker who could write was a worker who could articulate a grievance. Literacy was seen not as an escape route, but as a potential spark for sedition.
Yet the thirst for knowledge persisted, and to meet it, a new kind of institution had begun to appear in the poorest districts of Britain's industrial cities, the ragged school. These were not government-run schools, but charitable enterprises, born from the philanthropic zeal of reformers who believed that education was a moral imperative. They were called ragged because they were open to all, specifically targeting the most destitute children, the ones whose clothes were tattered and who were often turned away from other, more formal church schools. They operated out of whatever space could be found: a rented loft over a stable, a disused warehouse, a damp church crypt. The atmosphere within a ragged school was one of organized chaos. A single room might be crowded with 100 pupils ranging in age from 5 to 15. Volunteer teachers, often earnest middle-class men and women, would do their best to impart the basics of the alphabet, arithmetic, and scripture. Resources were scarce. Lessons were often taught by rote, with the teacher writing on a large slate and the children chanting the letters back. A few precious, worn-out books would be passed from hand to hand until their pages were soft with use. For the children who attended, these schools were an oasis. They were a brief respite from the grime and toil of the week, a place where they were seen not as laborers but as students, and where a window was opened onto a world they had never known existed. To attend such a school required a profound commitment. It meant sacrificing the only day of rest after a 60-hour work week, and it meant taking a risk. A foreman who saw a girl with a book might see a shirker.
A child found practicing their letters might be ridiculed or even punished for putting on airs. To conceal a book in one's shawl, as Mary does, was to hide a secret treasure, one that held both the promise of liberation and the threat of dismissal. Mary, at 15, is on the cusp of womanhood. She is old enough to feel the trap of the factory closing around her, to see the future stretching before her as an endless series of matches to be dipped and boxed. But unlike many of her peers, she now possesses a key. It is the key of letters. The ability to decode the strange symbols on posters, in newspapers, and in the precious, tattered copy of a book she keeps hidden. Her hands may perform the mechanical tasks of the factory, but her mind is increasingly elsewhere, practicing the shape of a new word, or rereading a sentence from a story. She is living a dual life, one of physical drudgery and one of secret, thrilling, intellectual awakening. Our final post tonight is her quiet manifesto, an unpopular opinion forged in the fumes of the match factory and the dusty light of a ragged school classroom.
My hands know the work without my mind telling them what to do. Dip the splints in the paste. The paste glows a little, a sickly yellow-green in the dim light. Lay them on the drying rack. Take a new frame. Dip, lay. For 10 hours, this is my world. The smell gets in your hair, in your clothes. It's the smell of phosphorus. It's the smell of money, Mama says. But it's also the smell of fear. The girl who works next to me, Bessie, she doesn't think about it. She says it's no use. You do the work, you get the pay, and you go home. That's all there is. She saw me the other day, tracing a letter on the dusty bench with my finger when the foreman wasn't looking. She shook her head. Full of notions you are, Mary, she whispered. Notions won't fill your belly. They'll get you sacked, is what they'll do. Perhaps she is right. Mr. Fletcher, the foreman, he hates notions. He calls it putting on airs. Last month he saw a boy with a bit of newspaper and he snatched it from him and threw it in the stove. If you've got time for reading, you've got time for more work, he shouted, and he docked the boy's pay for the day. I felt my own secret, tucked away in the folds of my shawl, grow heavy. A little book with a blue cover. It felt like a block of lead, a crime. And the risk is real, I know it is. My family needs my wages. My father's cough is worse this winter, and the pennies I bring home are what keep the fire lit and the bread on the table. If Mr. Fletcher sacks me, it's not just my belly that will be empty. And I know the other fear too, the one Bessie tries not to think about. We all do. 2 months ago they made Polly leave. Her face was swollen on one side. She said it was just a toothache, but we all knew. We saw the look in her eyes. We have all felt a twinge in our own teeth and felt that cold dread. That is the future this factory offers. You work until you can't, until your own bones betray you. So Bessie says it is best to keep your head down, to think of nothing, to be a good pair of hands. That is the popular opinion in this room. But I have a secret, an unpopular one. My opinion is that the notions are the only thing that make this life bearable. My opinion is that learning to read is worth the risk. Because for 10 hours a day, my hands are here, in this stinking room. But my mind is not. My mind is far away. While my hands dip and lay, my mind is practicing. I spell the words I see in my head: box, floor, Mr., Fletcher. It is a silent game, a shield. The noise of the room, the coughing, the foreman shouting, it all fades a little when I am building words in my head.
And then there is the book. It is my only one. Mr. Davies at the Sunday school gave it to me. It's called The Pilgrim's Progress. The cover is frayed and the pages are soft, almost like cloth. I keep it wrapped in a spare rag. At night, when my parents are asleep, I take it out. We only have one candle, so I have to sit very close to it. The letters on the page used to be just black marks. For months, they were a secret code I couldn't understand. I remember the day the code broke. Mr. Davies was pointing to a word. City. He said it slowly. And suddenly, it wasn't just letters. It was a picture. A whole city in my mind. It was like a door creaked open in my head. Now when I read, I am not Mary, the match girl. I am Christian, walking through the wicket gate. I have seen the slough of despond. I have met Mr. Worldly Wise Man. I did not know there were so many words. I did not know you could build whole worlds out of them. These are not just notions. This is magic. Going to the ragged school on a Sunday is the best part of my week. The room is above a bakery, and it is always warm and smells of bread. It's noisy and crowded with children, all of us tired from our week of work. But it's a different kind of tired. It's a hopeful tired. In that room, I am not just a pair of hands. I am a scholar. We share slates, and the chalk is precious. Mr. Davies has a kind voice. He never shouts. He says that learning to read is climbing a ladder out of a deep pit. Every new word is another rung on the ladder. Bessie does not see the pit. She says this is our life and we must accept it. But since I learned to read, I have started to see the walls of the pit all around me. I can read the signs on the street now. I know the names of the big shops I will never go inside. I can read some of the headlines from the newspapers that men read in the public houses. The world has grown bigger, and if the world is bigger, then my life can be bigger too. This is the real notion that Mr. Fletcher is afraid of. Not just that I can read, but that reading will make me want something more. And he is right. I do want something more. I do not know what it is yet. A life where my bones do not ache at the end of the day. A life where the air doesn't poison you. Maybe to be a teacher, like Mr. Davies, or to work in a shop where I can be around books. I don't know. But for the first time, I feel like I can think about it. The future is not just a long, dark tunnel leading to a swollen face and an early grave. It is a page that has not been written yet. And if I can read, maybe, just maybe, I can learn how to write it too. So yes, my book is a risk. Every day I walk in here with it hidden in my shawl. My heart beats a little faster. Every time Mr. Fletcher walks past my bench, I hold my breath. But then I think of Polly. I think of a life of dipping and laying, of breathing the poison until there is nothing left of you. And I think that is a bigger risk. To let your mind die, to let your spirit die, just to keep your body working for a few more years, that seems like a terrible choice. They think the book makes me weak, that it fills my head with useless dreams. But they are wrong. It makes me strong. It is my armor. My hands may be making matches, but my mind is building a ladder, and I will climb it word by word. And that is why it is worth it. It is worth all of it.
And with Mary's quiet declaration, our journey through the individual lives of these children comes to an end. Her voice, clear and determined, is a powerful counterpoint to the suffering and despair we have witnessed. She understood something profound, that the most effective cage is the one built inside the mind. The factory system sought to create a workforce that was not only cheap and compliant, but also limited in its aspirations. A child who could not see a world beyond the factory walls would never try to leave it. Mary's unpopular opinion was therefore an act of profound rebellion. Her book was not merely an escape, it was a tool of liberation. It was proof that her value was not determined by the number of matches she could box, but by the infinite potential of her own mind. Her story shines a light on the incredible, often forgotten history of the ragged school movement. These makeshift classrooms in stables and lofts were far more than just charitable enterprises. They were crucibles of social change. They stand as a testament to the fact that even in an age often characterized by its brutality and indifference, there were those who believed in the inherent worth and potential of every child. And more importantly, they are a testament to the children themselves. After 60 or 70 hours of exhausting labor, these children sacrificed their one day of rest not for play, but for the arduous task of learning their letters. Their hunger for knowledge, their willingness to risk what little they had for a chance at something more, is a powerful rebuke to the idea that they were passive victims of their circumstances. Mary's ladder is a perfect metaphor. Literacy was the rungs by which a person might climb out of the pit of generational poverty and ignorance. It offered the chance to understand contracts, to read the Bible for oneself, to engage with the political ideas shaping the nation, and, perhaps most importantly, to imagine a different future. The education these children received was rudimentary, but it was foundational. It planted the seeds of the idea that a child's time might be better spent in a classroom than in a factory, a radical notion that would slowly grow into the universal education movements of the later 19th and early 20th centuries. Mary and her fellow scholars in the ragged schools were on the quiet forefront of a revolution that would permanently reshape the meaning of childhood. She correctly identified the true nature of risk. The factory owners and foremen saw the risk in a literate worker. But Mary saw the far greater risk in an illiterate one. The risk of a life without hope, a spirit slowly extinguished by monotony and despair. She chose to risk her job to save her soul. Her quiet defiance, her steadfast belief in the power of a book, is a testament to the enduring resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming industrial might. Mary's voice, full of fragile but determined hope, provides a fitting place to pause our collection of stories for the night. These 4 accounts, from the deafening mill, the dark mine, the desperate tenement, and the dusty classroom, are but single threads in a vast and complex tapestry. Yet by listening to them, we gain a more intimate, human-scale map of this vast historical territory.
Tonight, we have listened to the echoes of 4 young lives, 4 quiet voices from the heart of the machine age. We stood with Thomas in the percussive roar of the cotton mill, a world of overwhelming sensation, where survival was measured in speed and agility. We sat with Sarah in the profound and absolute darkness of the coal mine, a world of sensory starvation, where the greatest battle was fought against the phantoms of a lonely mind.
We lay with Finn in the cramped tenement room, a world of pain and pressure, where the weight of a family's survival could crush a child's spirit. And finally, we sat with Mary in the dim light of the match factory and saw how the simple, radical act of learning to read could become a quiet rebellion, a declaration of hope against a world determined to offer none. Each story is a window into a different form of hardship, yet they are all connected by a single, undeniable truth. The great engine of the Industrial Revolution, which promised a new era of progress and prosperity, was fueled by the childhoods of millions. Their small hands pieced the threads, their small bodies opened the doors, their meager wages balanced the books, and their dreams were too often the first resource to be consumed. These accounts remind us that history is not just a collection of dates, inventions, and grand movements. It is the sum total of individual lives, of quiet fears, of small, resilient hopes, and of the immense, often unrecorded strength it took to simply endure. And so, as our time together in the past comes to a close, let the stories of these children fade gently into the quiet of your own space. May their resilience offer a strange comfort, a reminder of the enduring strength of the human spirit. Thank you for listening. May your rest be peaceful and your dreams be quiet. Until next time.